Well, good morning. It is Wednesday morning. It is the 24th of March. Yowzer. It is Wednesday, though, and it is for us at our church. We have prayer meeting on Wednesday nights at 6:30. We do wear masks. We do keep ourselves spaced as best we can, and so you are invited to attend that if you're serious about praying. And but if you don't feel comfortable attending in person, Sue, my wife, sends out an email invitation that has a Zoom link on it, and so there's one, two, three people at times who may join via Zoom. So you're welcome to do that as well. We move through this night of Jesus's arrest and all that's going on with that. Today's devotion is entitled "The Trial Before the Sanhedrin," or Sanhedrin, however you want to pronounce that. I've heard it done both ways. The trial before the Sanhedrin. Suggested reading is Mark, Gospel of Mark, chapter 14, verses 53 through 65. The verse that's quoted here is from that chapter, verse 55. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death. Frightening words, just those when you think the Sanhedrin and the people who made it up were religious leaders, but they'd gotten themselves involved in other things that weren't true religion, as the scriptures describe it. So, John Stott says about this, scholars are still debating some details of the four trials Jesus endured before Annas, Caiaphas, Herod, and Pilate. It seems clear, however, that he was taken straight from Gethsemane to a late night, informal, and preliminary hearing by Jewish leaders, chaired by Annas, who we are told was himself an ex-high priest and Caiaphas's father-in-law. His reputation was that he was a covetous old man who had made himself rich by the commercial abuse of the temple. So if you know the story of Jesus driving out the money changers, then you know why Annas may not be a real big fan of Jesus. Jesus was interrogated about his followers and his teaching, but declined to answer the questions put to him on the grounds that his words and deeds were already well known. So when you have people like that asking you questions, you know they don't really want to find out truth. They just want to find some kind of reason to stick it to you. Next, probably early the following morning, Jesus was brought before a plenary session of the Sanhedrin, which was the Supreme Court responsible for political, legal, and religious affairs in Jerusalem. The purpose of this meeting was to formulate an accusation against Jesus that could be submitted to the Roman court presided over by Pilate. Pilate would not be interested in trivial ecclesiastical offenses against Jewish law, but only in revolutionary claims that might threaten public security. And so Caiaphas, who as high priest presided over meetings of the Sanhedrin, directly challenged Jesus on whether he was the Messiah. In response, Jesus not only affirmed, "I am," but quoted both Daniel 7 and Psalm 110, verse 1, as fulfilled in him, thus claiming to have universal dominion and to share the throne of God. No wonder Caiaphas accused him of blasphemy and so as deserving of death. We cannot help contrasting the behavior of Peter yesterday, remember his denials, and Jesus today. Peter denied Jesus, but Jesus, while refusing to answer frivolous questions, courageously affirmed his messiahship before the highest Jewish court in the land. It is quite opposite ends of the pole, right? How Jesus handled the accusations that came his way and how Peter handled the accusations that came his way. There's a scripture I'm reminded of right now that, where is escaping my old brain here, but it talks about not casting your pearls before swine, referring to sharing the truth with people who really don't want to hear it. As a matter of fact, the only thing they may want to do with it is twist it, to find a way to lash back, to attack, to find error in it. They're not really interested in the truth, and that was the problem with Jesus' accusers. Unfortunately, the religious leaders of Israel, they were always looking to trap him, always coming, asking questions. They always ended up losing in the end, but they kept trying. And the same is here on this last night of Jesus's life. They know, they come to Pilate and say, hey, he's doing this that violates our law. Pilate would yawn and tell him to go away. So they had to come up with some kind of political thing, something that would worry Pilate, that if he didn't put this insurrection down somehow, Rome would be unhappy with him and he'd be replaced. The religious leaders of Israel wanted it nipped in the bud because they were afraid that Rome would show up and take away their power, take away their leadership, no longer allow them to have the influence and control that they currently had. Really, very, very little of all of this was about them wanting to know the truth of the Word, God's truth, the truth they were supposed to know. But because they had their own ways that they wanted to do things, they ignored the truth. And that is nothing new, and it has not gone away. There are still plenty of people who want to shape their truth their way, and in the process, maybe they throw in a verse here and a verse there, ripped out of context. If you want to see what the human condition is like, you look in the scriptures. One thing I love about the Bible, there are no golden plated heroes in the Bible. We see who they are for what they are. Look at the Hebrews chapter 11 chapter of faith, and you'll see a whole litany of people who had issues, and yet they yielded themselves to God, and God used them. That's the kind of people we want to be, I hope. Blessings to you today, and strive to live that kind of life, not like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, but like those heroes of faith, weak as they were, gave themselves over to the Lord. Blessings.